It seems the head chef has run off. What are we going to do with that big banquet tomorrow? The young landlady spoke, almost in tears. I wanted to help her, but I was just a guest at this inn and a former chef who no longer worked in kitchens. Then, my 9-year-old son tugged at my sleeve and looked up at me with sparkling eyes. Dad! It's your time to shine. Ha! Seeing his determined look, I made up my mind. My name is John. After graduating from culinary school, I started working at a renowned fine dining restaurant right away. I quickly honed my skills and showcased my abilities. I was recognized for my talent and became the youngest head chef in history, surpassing my seniors. Despite my rapid promotion, there were challenges with my seniors at work. But seeing people smile after eating my food made all the bad feelings disappear. I believed this was my calling. That's what I thought. I usually started work in the afternoon and returned late at night. When there were large banquets, I'd go out early in the morning to buy ingredients. I often stayed late after closing to test new recipes and serve them to regular customers. Ideas never stopped coming, and I took pride in my ability to keep guests delighted and satisfied with my culinary talents. I thought there was no job more fulfilling and enjoyable than this. Shortly after becoming the head chef, I married Sarah, who worked as a waitress at the restaurant. Even after getting married, my work remained my passion. In the early days of our marriage, I didn't spend much time with Sarah, but she never complained and let me do what I loved. The only thing that changed after marriage was that I stopped eating the staff meals at night. With Sarah, our home was always clean, comfortable, and my clothes were always neatly ironed. Thanks to her support, I could focus more on my work. And no matter how late it was, I would always come home to eat the dinner she prepared. Looking back, it must have been a burden for her, but she always kept the promise I asked for when we got married: please make dinner for me. Sarah would say, it's nerve-wracking to cook for a top-notch professional like you. But I always found her cooking mysteriously tastier than any masterpiece I made. A year later, Sarah became pregnant and left her job. We felt happiness every day as we watched her belly grow. Even when she couldn't eat due to morning sickness, she still made sure to cook my dinner. But back then, I didn't fully understand her condition despite being grateful. When Sarah was losing weight due to morning sickness, I asked if there was anything she could eat. She said, I want your seafood soup. And foolishly, I made soup for her every day from then on. Like a fool, I made it for her every day, while still having her cook my dinners. Yet, Sarah safely gave birth to our son, Michael. Seeing our adorable son with Sarah's eyes made me truly happy. But even after Michael was born, my lifestyle didn't change. I was busy developing new menus, entering competitions, overseeing VIP events, and collaborating with food companies. All while neglecting my family. Still, Sarah never complained and handled all the childcare and housework. Looking back, when Michael was young, he would already be asleep when I got home, and we only saw each other briefly in the mornings. I barely made it to his elementary school entrance ceremony, never attended father-son excursions, and only watched his sports day once. Yet, Michael still admired me as his father, thanks to Sarah's upbringing. Back then, I thought I was a well-known chef and a source of pride for my son. But such things didn't matter to a child. I realized this later and deeply regretted it. One day, there was a VIP's birthday party, and the restaurant was booked out. We were all busy preparing since morning, with everyone rushing around. Despite the preparations from the day before, the final touches during the banquet were a race against time. While I was overseeing everything and plating dishes, I suddenly got a call from the front desk. John, you have a call from your son. It was the first time Michael had ever called me at work. Michael? What's wrong? Mom says her stomach hurts. How is Mom doing? She said she would get better by resting in bed and that I shouldn't bother you. I hesitated for a moment, but it didn't seem like an emergency. Interpreting it conveniently for myself, I told Michael. Okay. I'll hurry home as soon as I finish my work. In the meantime, I'll ask Grandma to come over, so can you watch over Mom until then? Okay. Tell Grandma to come quickly. Hearing Michael's anxious voice tugged at my heart, but I couldn't leave the bustling kitchen that resembled a battlefield. Sarah's parents lived about 30 minutes away from us. If her mother was home, she could get there faster than I could. After hanging up with Michael, I quickly contacted her. Luckily, she was home and agreed to go immediately, which relieved me. Once I finished plating the main course, I handed things over to the other staff and left the kitchen. Back in the break room, I hurriedly checked my phone and saw a message from her mother with the hospital name and a list of things needed for admission. Admission. My hand trembled as I held my phone. I couldn't calm down until I saw Sarah's face. I grabbed my coat, hailed a taxi, and headed straight to the hospital. Sarah looked better than I had expected in the hospital room. When I arrived, she sat up to greet me. Stroking the head of Michael, who was asleep on the bed, Sarah smiled and said, "I told Michael I was fine, but I'm sorry for interrupting your work." While talking with Sarah, the doctor called me. I went to hear about her condition along with her mother. I don't remember much about what the doctor said, what we talked about, or how I got home afterward. I just remember it was something very shocking. The next morning, I made breakfast in the kitchen where Sarah usually was and then woke Michael up. The breakfast we ate together felt lonely. After sending Michael off to school, I went to work, handed over my duties to the staff, and applied for my accumulated leave. I returned home to clean and do laundry before Michael came back. When Michael returned, we visited Sarah at the hospital, and on the way back, we did some grocery shopping. Though my spirits were low, I wanted to at least feed Michael delicious meals. I prepared some of my best dishes, but Michael said, "Mom's steaks are better." I couldn't disagree. Thus began our life together, just Michael and me. Although Sarah's mother offered to help, I declined, saying I could manage while I was on leave. However, this lifestyle was short-lived, as Sarah passed away a month later. Even after the funeral, I couldn't bring myself to go back to work. I had loved my job so much. But just the thought of going to work filled me with guilt. The reality that I had left everything at home to Sarah while I did what I enjoyed hit me hard. I didn't feel capable of working like I used to. I realized that I had enjoyed working because of Sarah's support. That's when it hit me. I tried to stay cheerful in front of Michael and worked hard on housework and cooking. But one day, "Dad, are you never going back to work?" I couldn't answer him right away. "Eventually," was all I could muster as a response. I had enough savings from my decent salary to not need to work immediately. However, I knew I couldn't stay like this forever. The next day, I went to my workplace to submit my resignation. Everyone tried to persuade me to stay, but I couldn't cook with the same passion I once had. Cooking is about love. Even if it's for strangers, if you don't have the desire to make them smile with delicious food, it's just something to fill their stomachs. Sarah's cooking tasted better because of the love she put into it. Then, one day, as I was gradually getting used to life without Sarah, I came across an old photo of her while sorting through her belongings. In the photograph, she was younger and it was taken at an inn. I remembered Sarah saying before she passed, "I went there with friends before we got married. It was wonderful. And I'd love to go there with our family someday." At that time, I thought, it's too early for Michael to appreciate a fancy inn, and we never went. I couldn't sit still any longer. When Michael came home from school, I said, "Let's go to Mom's special place," and started packing. At Michael's request, we took trains instead of driving and arrived at a rustic inn. It looked different from the photo Sarah had, and it seemed deserted. When we entered the lobby, it opened up around a small garden with a dried-up pond in the center. "Welcome. May I have your reservation name, please?" A woman in a dark blue uniform came out from the front desk. She looked about the same age as Sarah would have been. Her striking eyes left a strong impression. When I gave my name, she glanced at me before turning to her computer. "How long will you be staying?" "3 nights, please." I hesitated a bit, not wanting Michael to miss too much school. But why had this place become so empty over the years? It was Friday, the day before a long weekend, yet there was hardly any sign of people. "Then, I'll show you to your room." The woman prepared a cart for our luggage and led us through the inn, explaining things as we went. Judging by her dress and age, she was likely the young landlady of the inn. While she guided us, Michael looked around curiously and followed her closely. "This place is huge. I might get lost," Michael said, to which the young landlady turned and smiled. "If that happens, just come to me. I'll make sure you get back to your room." She spoke formally with me but seemed kind to children. Her tone was noticeably different. Reassured, Michael nodded yes and continued talking to her. They seemed to get along well, chatting happily, while I followed behind, watching them. Once we were shown to our room, the young landlady made coffee for me and served iced tea for Michael. "These snacks are delicious," Michael said, happily eating the traditional sweets that came with the drink. "You can have mine too." "No, Dad, you eat too. They're really good. You are acting all grown up, looking out for your dad," I teased, poking Michael's cheek. "What? I don't understand," he said, puffing his cheeks. The young landlady, watching us, smiled and said, "You two get along well. Don't worry, these snacks are sold in the shop downstairs. Have your dad buy you some?" "Yay! Dad, let's go buy some. First, we should eat meals properly," I said, watching Michael and making the young landlady smile again as she left the room, saying, "Please relax and enjoy your stay." Perhaps because children are rare here, the young landlady and the inn staff paid a lot of attention to Michael. During dinner, they gave him special desserts and even let him play outside. I had brought a game console, thinking he might get bored, but it seemed unnecessary. The young landlady's name was Emily, and she was the same age as Sarah. Emily wasn't particularly friendly to me, but she always smiled warmly at Michael. Before I knew it, the two of them had become close, making me feel a bit left out, but Michael's happiness was all that mattered to me. Perhaps Michael was happy to interact with a woman around his mother's age. Today, I went to the room with the small door. Was he talking about the tea room? It seemed Emily had shown Michael around the parts of the inn which is usually inaccessible while I was out exploring. "Michael, Emily is working. Don't bother her too much," I cautioned him, when a voice called from behind me. "It's no trouble at all. Michael, the bath is ready, so you can swim as promised. But you need to go with your dad, okay?" "Yay! Dad, let's go." Michael pulled my hand. "Hold on a second. We'll be cleaning the large bathhouse from 1 p.m., so you can use it freely until then. The other guests have already checked out. So it's all yours until the next guests arrive." The large bathhouse had a view of the sea. I enjoyed the scenery while Michael played in the bath like it was a pool. "Let's go out for lunch," I suggested to Michael as we headed back to our room from the bathhouse. On the way, I noticed Emily looking flustered, and the staff seemed to be in a hurry as well. "Back in the room," Michael said, "I left something in the bath." "What did you forget?" "I'll go get it." "It's okay, I can go by myself." Michael knew the inn better than I did by now. He left quickly, and I waited. After a while, Michael returned, out of breath. "Dad, it's your time to shine." "Huh?" Michael took my hand and led me out. He brought me to the back area of the inn, a place only employees were allowed to enter. "Michael, you shouldn't be here without permission," I said, but Michael called out, "Emily, I brought my dad." Emily came out, looking worried. "Michael, I told you, my dad's a chef. He can help." She looked confused. "Is something wrong?" As I asked, she hesitated but explained the situation. "We have a big banquet coming up. Today, the inn was booked for a celebrity's engagement party, with TV crews covering the event. It was a chance to revitalize the declining inn. And the staff had been eagerly preparing, but they had lost contact with the head chef, Mark. They went to check on him at his home. At Mark's apartment, there was no response. The management company said he had moved out. He was working normally until yesterday. The move had happened without anyone's knowledge. Did he run away? I can't believe Mark would do that. That's why the staff were in such a frenzy. So we're urgently looking for someone to take charge of the kitchen." Emily sighed. "Don't worry, my dad can handle it," Michael said, drawing all the staff's eyes to us. One of them pointed at me and exclaimed, "Ah! Aren't you John? What are you doing here? It's really him. I've seen him in magazines. I've eaten at your restaurant before. I'm a huge fan. Can I get your autograph?" As people gathered around me, Michael beamed with pride. "Can I help with anything?" I asked Emily, making Michael's face light up. "Please help us?" Emily asked seriously. "All right, I'll step into the kitchen," I said. I put on an apron and stepped into the kitchen, and the familiar smells brought back memories. From that moment, I was completely absorbed. I reviewed the menu, considering the guests' gender and age range, and assigned tasks to the staff accordingly. I seasoned each dish meticulously and didn't skimp on the final presentation. As I cooked, I imagined the smiles of the guests as they tasted the food. My hands moved automatically, organizing all the necessary information in my head. Everything was ingrained in me. Occasionally, I caught Michael's admiring gaze from where he was watching me without getting in the way. Next to him was Emily, watching as well. "Dad, you're amazing. Your dad really is incredible, Michael." I thought I heard them say, but it might have been my imagination. After finishing the last dish, the kitchen staff applauded me. "Dad, you were really cool," Michael said excitedly, repeating it several times on our way back to the room. "All right, that's enough, you're making me blush," I said, feeling both proud and embarrassed by his praise. Exhausted from the excitement, Michael fell asleep soon after dinner. "Excuse me." Emily entered to clear the dinner table. "Thank you so much for earlier." She appreciated it deeply. "No, thank you for the opportunity. I never thought Michael would be so happy to see me cooking. It felt good to show him what I can do as a father. I'm sorry dinner was late." "Michael must have been hungry," she said, glancing at Michael, who was already fast asleep. "He's had such a fresh and exciting experience every day here." "We'll be leaving tomorrow, but thank you for taking care of us," I said, but then Emily looked at me with determination. "Actually, I attended Sarah's funeral," Emily said suddenly, leaving me speechless. She continued. "Sarah and I were close friends from college. Right after graduation, I came here to train as a landlady, so we never had a chance to meet. The head landlady here is her aunt. Her aunt doesn't have any children, so she's set to take over. Sarah always said you were a wonderful husband. But honestly, I thought you were a lousy husband who didn't care about his family and only focused on work. I even blamed you for Sarah's death." "I'm sorry," she said, struggling with her words. I couldn't help but chuckle. Being called out by someone else, even when you already know it yourself, stings. "No, Emily, you're right. I left all the household chores and childcare to Sarah and only focused on the work I loved. As a result, I didn't notice her health deteriorating, and she died because of it." Sarah's face, always supportive without a single complaint, flashed in my mind. But today, watching you in the kitchen, I understood how Sarah felt. She truly respected and was proud of you, John, from the bottom of her heart. And Michael too. The way he talks so proudly about you shows that your love for the family was clear to him. I felt a lump in my throat at her unexpected words. My eyes grew hot. Managing a smile, I said, "I hope so," with all the strength I could muster. After Emily finished cleaning up and left, I sipped the coffee she had made, reflecting on her words. Just then, Michael woke up. "Sorry, did the TV wake you up?" I turned down the volume. "We're going home tomorrow, right?" "Yes." "Did you have fun?" "Yeah." "I want to come again." "Sure, we'll come back." This trip was worth it if Michael felt happy and refreshed. Thanks to this visit, I had shown Michael a side of me as a father. "Michael, I'm going to be a chef again." I told Michael about my decision. "Mom used to say, your dad makes food that makes many people smile. She was proud of you. That's why I want to be a chef like you, Dad." "Michael." "Dad? What's wrong?" His unexpected words brought tears to my eyes. I couldn't stop the tears and sobs of gratitude and regret for the way Michael thought of me and for Sarah who raised him that way. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm sorry, I'm really so sorry." I hugged Michael tightly. Michael, just like Sarah would, patted my back comfortingly. We fell asleep together, hugging in the same bed. "We'll take you to the station by shuttle bus, so please wait a moment," Emily said as we checked out. Michael and I waited in the lobby. "By the way, what happened to Mark?" I asked, curious before we left. "He ran away with a lot of debt. We don't know where he is." Mark had not only run away but had also taken the inn's earnings. The police were notified, but finding him would be difficult. "I see. We need to find a new head chef quickly," Emily said, looking worried. Then why doesn't Dad become the head chef? Seeing Emily's troubled expression, Michael suggested it as a brilliant idea. Well, I'd love to work here if it were closer to home. But if I became the head chef here, you'd have to transfer schools, Michael. Michael thought for a moment. That's fine. What? I'm okay with moving. I'd like to live here. I hadn't expected Michael to say that, and I looked at Emily, surprised. Even if Michael said that, it was up to her to decide whether to hire me. I might be overstepping, but I believe Sarah guided you here to save this inn. I think she helped us. So if you're willing, would you stay and work with us? I felt that my coming here at this time was some kind of fate. Encouraged by Michael, I decided to work at this inn. As I took on the role of head chef, word of mouth gradually spread, and the inn began to regain its former liveliness. A few days later, the celebrity engagement party was featured on TV, and the phone started ringing off the hook with reservations. We found ourselves busier than ever. Time flew by, and before I knew it, 20 years had passed. Not long after that, I remarried Emily. It was Michael who brought us together. We had a daughter, and Emily showed the same love and care for Michael as she did for our daughter. Grateful for her, I now stand in the kitchen with Michael, cooking and imagining the delighted faces of our guests.